differentiating factor. Perhaps that's why your designs stand out so nice. She's the second lighting consultant on our panel today. So how do you create these experiences for guests in hospitality lighting design?
Well, when we say experiences, sometimes what people start expecting is something out of the box creative, which I agree is always a part of a design, but that is perhaps a small percentage. Fundamentals are the primary, that's maybe the 80% or 90%. And how does we address the whole experience is firstly by addressing that 80 to 90% of the primary functional aspect, and then adding on the layer of creative out of the box ideas. And it's done by understanding the basic context that light is intangible. So you really cannot determine how the space will be experienced, how the space will appear just by picking up, like for instance, you can select between two granite slabs or maybe two different laminates by just looking at them. But by looking at two light products, you will not know how it will appear in space A versus space B. Now, for lots of clients, it's such that downlights, all these are downlights. Why is it that we're going for A and not B? Now, when there's a light, when there's a light source, for us, there's so many other factors which make or break the experience. In the same kind of a light, let's say a 10 watt LED, in retail would be something which would create, you want to see the light on the ceiling, you want a bit of a glitter on the ceiling, and you want a lot of lux levels. Whereas when it is a 10 watt light in a hotel, you do not want to see it much, you want to really deep recessed, you want a punch, so you don't want a very widespread uniform light, you want a narrower beam, so you want to have light wherever it is required, maybe on the furniture, on the upholstery, on furnishings, so you bring out the texture. Now, for us, the same 10 watt LED in retail is totally different, because it's something which is giving you diffused and uniform light, and the idea is to create brightness, whereas in hospitality the idea is to create glamour, so it is the same light is given a totally different kind of an output by controlling its optics or beam, and by controlling the way it appears on the ceiling, by being, like I said, deep recessed or low glare.
Thank you. We have the famous Patki architects, almost 50 years of legacy, and have been doing hospitality projects across generations. So as an architect, Indians have grown up with a little less sensitivity towards design. We've all grown up, at least I'm talking of myself, looking at fluorescent tubes through white light, and we were okay with it. Tube lights in all our houses, we were okay with it till recently. Things have changed. So when you started your design practice, how do you kind of acclimatize clients across in India and tell them, look, you need a specialized lighting consultant? And this is not specific to hospitality industry, because hospitality industry has been using lighting consultants for a long time. But in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, even today, especially builder-driven ownership of resort or hotel properties, they tend to be, I know it all and I don't need a consultant, interior designer will do it all. So how do you handle that?
I think it is by educating them that the lighting in a hospitality project needs to be very versatile. It needs to be very layered. Lighting needs to serve the purpose of task lighting, focal lighting, ambient lighting, still make the space look glamorous. And a specialist will add a lot of value when we come on board. And I think after seeing various projects executed with a lighting consultant and without, they can make up the difference, the value add a lighting designer is bringing to the project. And I think operators are sort of pushing that point through too. So today, having them on board simplifies a lot of other issues that we would face in sort of styling, enhancing the aesthetics of a space. And I think they are sort of turning around and accepting more specialists on the project.
So my question to both the operators, they're quite industry stalwarts, having put in years and years in hospitality in various roles and profiles. We've a gentleman from Hyatt and we have a gentleman from Marriott represent both these groups. So hospitality, Lighting design for hospitality per se has come of age and has changed drastically from where we started a couple of years back. How do brand standards determine the differences between A group to B group? Is there a different way of thinking? Because you put in some number of years with another hospitality company and some number of years with another. So do you really feel the difference between global players and their lighting standards and Indian players?
Well, I think, like you said, light is intangible. That's a great statement to hear. I like that. The problem, the difference is that as a brand, we have to play the devil's advocate over here. Now, lighting is one of the most confusing topics when you start making hotels. Of course, making a hotel itself is a challenge. I'm sure lots of people have gone through that. But one of the biggest issues is understanding this whole process of lighting in the sense that there are many segmentations. Okay. So what we will do for a mid-scale, entry-level, upper-scale and luxury will be completely different from, each will have its own design standards, each will have its own requirements, you know. So for a luxury, you will go completely overboard. For an entry-level hotel, you just have minimum stuff that is required. And our brand standards definitely guide us to say what is the technical requirement for the light standard. And, you know, the reflections and whatever. I think the idea is to get the render correct. If the render comes out good, at least then the visualization is there. If the visualization is there, it can come into practice. But it's not in a chandelier and a fair few will have very different stuff. So it depends on what. Second is the cost. Eventually it comes down to the cost. So as a brand, we want to hold on to our ethos that we want this kind of light. Sometimes the owner will say, like she said, the cost, where am I getting my return from? So it's a bit of a challenge. But like she said, Viraj, we go to 2-3 tier cities, the expectation is huge.
From those days where it was, a hotel was just a place of accommodation or just a place of eating. Now as a brand, we have to ensure that the guest experience gets the best of the experience of all the 5 human senses basically. So I think to complement all those things, lighting is the first thing which has to be the perfect. So you take it from that way, and I think as a brand we all divide lighting into 4 different distinct elements. Like it has to be a general lighting, then it has to be task lighting, then it has to be ascent lighting, and the most important, the security lighting. So when you talk on all those things to somebody, there should be some expertise in that, to figure out how to transition from one place to another, keeping the ambience and all as what a brand would have perceived for or looked for. So nowadays, if you see the experience of a lobby is no more a reception area. And I don't want to highlight a reception as a focal point. For me, the focal point would be a lounge or an artifact or a flower or something. And that doubles up to me as a meeting space also, casual meeting space. We're moving out of the space of a business center also. So the lightings have to be transitioning from in the same space, it has to transition into 2-3 different functionalities. And same way when you come to the guest room is no more just a place to sit. And there was a days when you have a desk, writing desk, and we had a table lamp there, fixed for it. Now nobody, I think it's become obsolete. We just for notion's sake, these days the table remains there, but yes, we all have a cozy corner, guys can work on the cozy corner area or on the bed. So the lighting has to be considered in all these aspects. And yes, when an interior designer comes up with some elements on that, the real color, the real texture, the look, feel, what appeals has to be with the apt light, correct lighting, which for sure only a lighting consultant can come. Yes, when you say all these things, challenges are there. In India per se, yes, we have got people who are taking over as lighting consultants and owners are ready to accept them, but yes, still we are at 70-30. 70 say my ID will take care of all those things, and the 30 still say that not required. So this is where we are today as a brand, but we have to push this, and yes, we are going through the same, what we discussed about all this.
So we all hope this ratio of 70-30 kind of juxtaposes and reverses out. We have 70% clients who understand what they want.
It's showing a change, a trend is changing these days, and we are moving towards that direction.
My personal take, unfortunately in India, design is not paid for enough and respected for enough. That's where it's a mindset. I mean, they spend on the most expensive marble, they spend on the most expensive things across. But when it comes to paying a consultant or a professional for the services, especially to do with the world of design, they will want to scout and negotiate to a point where the designer loses their interest or charm into the project.
Jimmy, to your point, the best of marble would be seen only when it is illuminated in the right way. It cannot be just
and humans too. You know, I completely agree with you. The formats of hospitality are changing drastically. Reception spaces are now no longer just a circulation space. It's a meeting space. The formats are vertical reception counters. They are like meeting tables in the middle of a lobby. Pullman Paris has done a beautiful job. The whole new format which is being rolled out. It's not a counter A versus B. I stand behind and the customer and the guest stands in front. But it's moved in the middle of the lobbies and they are like meeting spaces. The whole format of hospitality is changing and hence the lighting needs are no longer the same.
And as you say, in F&B production line also, we have the same problem. We are moving away from the fixed buffet counters. So it's a multi-table which it has to be in two different functions. Morning it would be a breakfast spread, evening it would be a seating area, high-level seating area. So the requirements of the same space in two different tones are different. So the lighting has to complement accordingly. So this cannot be done by a normal guy. There has to be some expertise to that. Even this challenge is what we are facing, that to educate the owner, yes, you need the best, but you need to have the right people at the right place. And that to not at the fag end of the project. As such, what happens is lighting designers have never been involved from the day one. They are required from the day one. As we conceive, when the ID gets into stage, they both have to complement each other along with MEP, and then they have to work on the third front, which is the sustainability part also. So all these things have to be in place for that. So that education level towards the owners is slightly what we are finding as challenging.
Day by day, the F&B segment within hospitality has also gone through a sea change, and chefs are getting more and more aware not only what they do within the kitchen and the way they present their dish, but the way the dish and the food looks under different lighting conditions. So when restaurant designs for F&B outlets are being done, a lot of focus and emphasis is being paid on lighting design, because now not only the clients but the chefs are involved. So when chefs do a retrofit and move in, they insist on getting a lighting consultant or somebody whom they've worked with in the past on board and say, I need this to be added in the restaurant. So that's also another change. So more and more education and realization happens and technicalities are understood. I think things are changing across. So good design is all about creating an element of surprise. How do you use, as a lighting design consultant, how do you use the tool of lighting to create the element of surprise?
Initially, the lighting was based on electrical technology. By 2010, the electrical technology shifted into electronics. Now I hear that even the lighting is becoming a communication tool. So the shift of technology from electrical to electronics, and fixtures started becoming smaller and smaller. Today, we could do an interesting facade by integrating LED light source into facade fabric. That goes into the same thing like even in the interiors. We generally talk about downlight, home light. Now we can create interesting spaces with LED taking up any forms. So the shift of technology has made lighting more creative, more interesting, and it's a sustainable light source.
Which of your projects you think you really managed to create the element of surprise and guests turn around and keep telling you, wow?
Mostly these are hotel projects, but I hear both the sides of it. We, in Middle East, we receive at least 5 to 10 times the lighting level from other regions. So general perception of human being is that I need more light. So if international standards maybe has written in US or UK, they are under cloudy environment. So they said 100 lux per corridor. That 100 lux does not work in Dubai or Middle East region for circulation speed, because I adapted to high level of lighting. So on my contrary, like I have created some interesting guest too. I've heard customers complaining lighting level is low, because some people like flat lighting. You can't do flat lighting. You need to play with darkness. That's what we try to do.
Very interesting. As an architect, as a designer, how do you give a brief to a consultant? Or requirement of creating an element of surprise within a hospitality environment, is that one of the bases of your brief to a consultant?
I think lighting is a very, very important aspect of the design. So when we are conceptualizing a place, a space, we are constantly thinking about where the light source will come from, which walls we want to light, what materials we want to highlight, where's the artwork going to be. So all of that is part of our basic concept designs, and you would see it in our basic rendering. But and that is what we sort of translate to our design lighting consultants, telling them what we want them to enhance. So while they'll help us do that, like Jaspreet was saying, there is basic task lighting that needs to be taken care of. So one is the glamorous aspect of lighting that you're seeing, but basic functional lighting is required. Otherwise, you won't enjoy any space. So it would be the basis of the way I place furniture, I place lighting in the design at the same time.
So at times I wonder when we visit some of the new generation hotels and realize that the lighting is really just not up to mark. You very often go to a destination wedding resort and realize that there is not enough lighting on the vanity because the whole purpose of that resort is defeated. So the form versus functionality that needs to be looked at, and we'll talk about it later, but to my consultant on the left, how do we create, you really work towards somewhere secretly at the back of your mind using the medium of lighting, how do you create an element of surprise?
Okay, so I will use an example of landscape lighting to establish this context. Particularly, I can think of a resort wherein most often the brief is that since this is a resort and there are hills across the boundary, we want an open view. So when a landscape consultant or client says that we just want a totally open view with no interruptions, what we tell them is you may be able to appreciate that space during the day because you will see the hills across the boundary, the side boundary, but at night what you will be looking into will be a black hole. So to create light as an element, if there is no element at the side border that we just leave it totally open for an open view, we will have to end up putting some light posts. Ideal situation would be if you integrate some element into the landscape. So let's say have a gazebo, have a trellis, have even just some trees. Trees don't really take away the view, they add to the view, they enhance the view. So I forget your exact question, but to frame it in my own words, not by having light stand up there as a source of light or an element of light, but by light being there aligned to some element of design. And that is when it is subtly there, and at the same time it is really adding to the view, I would say.
Well said. To both my panelists who come from the operations background, form versus functionality, capex versus opex. What is your brass tacks? So how do you handle this kind of tug of war between capex with fantastic images from global players versus China-made, India-made, part assembled stuff, jugaad stuff as we were talking outside, and as he used the word. So how do you trade off between capex versus opex, and how do you still let the wider sensibility prevail?
Best part is like we are not there after opening the hotel. So the OPEX part goes off in a different way. Yes, we try to educate the owner about it. But yes, most of the time it happens like, yes, we have to deal with it. So we have to talk, and most of now it's getting into their knowledge also. Like, yes, you have the right thing at the right place, you will save money, though the capex could be a bit higher. There are people who are interested to get the best of things so that the operating cost comes down, and they're there. People are there in that field also. So yes.
For operating costs, I think there is enough that has been said about sustainability, LEDs and stuff. So we are all moving that direction. But you're right, the China make model, putting the BOQ together, getting all these mix and match stuff. I think you have to be a little sensitive to the owner, because like I said, the end of the day is the ROI.
The per room cost.
It's the cost per key. That's what's going to come back to bite them. Having said that, I think as a brand we will demand the quality, because at the end it's going to eventually come out of the operating profit, the repair and maintenance. It's not going to go anywhere. So finally, it's going to be the loss for the owner only. We're able to explain that to him, that it's going to eventually come out of your profits, whether you spend the money now or later.
Right.
I think it makes sense to try and convince them to do it now. Much better.
You want to add something?
Yes. So, considering the operating cost, one thing I've seen, the clients are, in hospitality, clients are more than happy to spend. I mean, I'm not sure how valid that statement is, but they are okay to spend on the interior lighting. But when it comes to exterior lighting, they feel, why do we have to spend here? And that is where maybe they're saving their initial cost, but in exterior, in the outdoor condition, where there's water, there's dust, if you do not put robust enough products, then you are adding to your running cost because you will have to keep replacing them.
To accentuate
The replacement cycle to frequent. And then the second thing also is when initially the designers, the clients, I feel at the initial stage they are ambitious and they're happy to install lights in various different, let's say, odd positions of the building. But when there's no consideration made or no provision made for maintenance of those lights subsequently, again, it doesn't remain sustainable, in the long run.
Good architecture can be only appreciated and you can create that warmness on a building structure. Without architectural lights, you can't really do it.
I was actually just going to talk about that. We were working with Praveen. In fact, didn't work finally, but facade lighting is one of the biggest challenges. And that time he threw a word at me that was called light pollution. So I said, my goodness, this is new now. So there's a lot of light going up the facade, there's a lot of light escaping out. So, as much as more light you require, you've got to be sensitive to the fact that you have just enough light. Otherwise you're just wasting it. It's not going anywhere. But yeah, I think facade lighting also plays a very big part in this whole guest experience that comes in.
At times when you look at good lighting design, you realize that it's accentuating the aesthetics of the city and the architecture and the landscape you see. And at times you see all kinds of vivid and weird colors and all kinds of gaudy, awry lighting thrown across, ruining, and that's what his point was, creates lighting noise or facade lighting noise as we call it. So that's the take that we need to do, and I think this is applicable most common in our city. When you see government projects which are lit in all kinds of hues and colors, you feel in the daytime you see a skywalk and it feels like Congo in 1971, and you see the lighting design at night and you wonder what the heck just happened. It doesn't kind of fit like a glove with the landscape of the city, and just. Okay, so before we have the last few minutes, I would love to take a few questions from the crowd for our panelists. They're spending their valuable time, and I'm sure you can pick on their brains for anything that you would like to ask. Could we have some mics inside?
From Indian Society of Lighting Engineers. Well, just now you mentioned that hospital lighting, one of the important aspects is the facade lighting. And definitely, just now you mentioned about the word pollution due to lights. And it is a fact that now globally they are worried about this. Is, from our childhood we have learned about the pollution due to automobiles, factories and all that. But the pollution due to light now is a new phenomenon which has come. And definitely it is a wastage of light, and not only that, it is affecting even the health aspect, not only human beings, even the animals and the creatures. So what are the considerations to be given when you say about the hospital lighting or facade lighting? How you take care?
I've got the question right, would you? Yeah.
That's an interesting question as far as light pollution is concerned. When we are doing facade lighting, we should also take into consideration the person living in the next building who is going to look at it. He might not be able to sleep at night if your facade lighting is on throughout. So what we do is, we use equipment which are precise engineering, which will light up certain elements, and we control the light in such a way that lights are not polluted. We also take into consideration that we should not create an illuminated surface so that somebody in the next door can't sleep. And we also make arrangement to switch off certain lights after certain interval of time. So generally, most of the lights, only the maybe crown is kept at after 10 o'clock night. Even what we advise many people is, don't put this big signage, logos, maybe you dim it down, so that also we need to take not only light pollution, people surrounding around the building should be able to sleep comfortably. I had a very great experience. I was doing a project in which one of the aviation lights was sitting next to one person's bedroom, and this was a glass facade, and the person could not sleep into that room because it was big red color light. So the person could not, he had always covered with the curtain, but still there was a light streaming inside. So we take into all these consideration of surrounding as well as light pollution in design itself.
Also very critical is to the occupants of the building, the lighting design and the facade lighting should not be hurting them when they're trying to look out of the building. And most category 2 and B and C township cities, where builders become lighting designers and architects become lighting designers, the kind of flood lighting that's done makes a building look nice from outside, but for its own occupants, it's a nightmare. Okay, any more questions? I guess we bored you guys enough.
I would like to add one more point. Whenever you're doing any facade lighting, the ambient lighting of the surrounding has to be studied first before even you plan the lighting design. Because what I might be doing in Dubai or I might be doing in other cities might be applicable to a remote location. So basically visiting that place, understand the lighting in the surrounding and then doing the facade lighting. So the light pollution you can control then and there itself. Maybe the building in Bombay need more illumination to make it stand out, but that might be the case somewhere in the remote area. So understanding, going to the place, understanding the surrounding, learning and making sure correct ambience is needed and then do the lighting, so that light pollution also can be controlled that way.
Anyway, thank you all. Our time is up and we've come to the end of the session. I thank my panelists for taking time off their busy schedules and being here and sharing their level of knowledge and expertise with all of you. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to us as much as we've enjoyed delivering the talk to you. Thank you.